Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are here exactly on time, right at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Write it down.
Write it down. We are here for the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield here, as always, with the namesake, his big bro Rich, Big Bro Scho. How are you doing tonight, Rich?
Hey, doing okay. Work's been trying to kick my butt, but not letting it happen.
Yeah, all right. So, wow.
Gotta keep some Steeler football out there to keep you sane.
Keep you sane, yeah. I was going to say my YouTube actually started to come through my phone just to make sure we were live, but I think we're good and ready to go. For those of you watching live on YouTube, do not adjust your screens. Rich is wearing a gold TJ Watt jersey with a completely black background, which is actually the great outdoors. You can hear
Great outdoors. I moved my seat 6 feet to go from my dining room out onto the deck. Why? Because it's much cooler out here.
Yeah, there you go. Because you don't live in that area where everyone has air conditioning. Yeah, nuts. But anyway, I couldn't have. I digressed. I don't know what
gold tonight since I had the dark background, and
yeah,
I got to tell you, every time I see this jersey, okay, I can't help it. Every time I see a TJ Watt jersey now,
yeah,
I think of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay.
What?
Oh, got it. Okay.
What?
Yeah, I got you. I was waiting. I was waiting for it. But hey, good to just be here. Good time with family, bros. We got people rolling into the live chat. You know, Jeffrey Benedict was first and was very proud of it until you scolded him about that. We got Brad and Ryan and Dennis and Kathy and George and Solarverse, and I know a lot of the regulars are rolling in here. But today was a crazy day with Steelers stuff. We're sticking with the theme. We're sticking with the secondary theme. We'll get to that. But before we go secondary, there's something we have to mention. It just doesn't seem right unless we bring it up that it is the 1 year anniversary of the passing of Coach Darrell Drake at training camp last year. Had still affects those young guys on this team. He meant the world to them. I know with Juju Smith-Schuster still talks about him, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, even though it was a short time, that's who drafted him. I'll always remember Coach Drake from his press conference after they drafted Deontay Johnson, and he told a little story of getting cussed out by someone in the Tampa Bay organization. I assume that was probably Bruce Arians, because they stole their pick. Gotta love that. So, but Coach Drake, he was really something. He stepped in whenever the legendary Coach Mann retired, and that's who Steelers didn't miss a beat with Coach Drake coming in. Big loss for the team. Constantly, reminded of that. With Coach Drake. Well, I mean, what can you say? He was a great man. From everything that I hear from his players. And that's kind of what you want to, that's a legacy you want to leave behind is when guys of the next generation still have so much respect for you. So what are your thoughts on anything you want to say about the anniversary of the passing of Coach Drake there, Rich?
I hate that he's gone. Just hoping that Coach Hilliard can step in now as the wide receivers coach and just kind of keep some of that same mojo going that we've had receivers wise for a while now. So, hold on, can't forget this one either.
Yep, that was from yesterday. My wife told me about that one. That was
Ryan O'Toole.
Ryan O'Toole says, "R.I.P. Kamala, the great WWF." I'm saying WWF because that's what it was back then.
Kamala the headhunter.
That as soon as when my wife says the name, like, did you know that name? Like, yeah. I said he had the white stars on his chest and the crescent moon on his stomach. She's like, that's the exact picture that I see here. I said, yeah, I remember him. So yeah. But Coach Drake, man, meant an awful lot to this organization.
He meant a lot, and you know what? And it wasn't. Although he spent most of his time with the wide receivers, it was not just the wide receiver room that he had an impact on.
Yeah, Like Dennis said, he's like that. He just couldn't believe it. 1 year already. I still remember. I got that text from Tony Defio. It was a Sunday. I was sitting in church, and I got a text from Tony Defio, and I went out to the lobby, got a hold of Jeff, and I'm like, this is like the worst story I have to write right now. Yeah, but we had to do what we had to do, and
not what you want to do, but
no. And I mean, it just started off a pretty crummy 2019 season. I mean, there was good parts of the 2019 season. We're going to talk about some of those good parts, but
but you had Coach Drake and everything that went on there, and then by game 2, you lose Ben Roethlisberger, and I mean, it just was like, wow, when are we going to get something to go our way? Well, we did get one thing to go our way leading into the night, and that was a trade.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you ask me, that was the best thing to come out of last year.
Yeah, that was the best thing out of 2019. But yeah, those I'm just thinking, you were hoping those young guys could, rally around the passing of their coach, but then then you lose the quarterback. Right. Juju was dealing with injuries. It was a lot that they had to deal with last year. And you know what? Hopefully they'll just this year.
Not trying to make any excuses for those guys because there isn't. Okay, our wide receiving core was not what they needed to be last year. But it is tough to overcome the death of your coach, who was such a father figure to most of those guys, and then to lose your franchise quarterback. But
yeah, and not only that, who was the veteran in the room?
Juju.
No, the guy that couldn't.
Mr. Stonehands or what?
Yeah, and then the guy that was supposed to come in and be your veteran leadership, just struggled. He had an injury to his hand, and I don't want to say it was an excuse, but it's true. But notice he's not in the NFL this year, as far as I understand. As people wanted to call him Dante Goodgrief, that was supposed to be someone to help come in and help carry the load, and it ended up really hurting them early on. So they went through a lot, but guess what? 2020, we don't want to get started on 2020 because 2020, the year, has just been, piling on what these guys had to deal with in 2019. But we're hoping that 2020, the season, can be something that turns around. So, Rich, let's dive into this topic tonight because
hold on, since you're talking about 2020 for a second, just remember though, the Super Bowl is played in 2021.
That's right. The Super Bowl is in 2021. So you just got to get to 2021. Let's do that, which is, that's a really good point. So, but today is part of Steelers Nation. Seemed like it was Steelers secondary day. If you're paying attention at all, the Steelers put out a schedule of when players are going to be doing their interviews on Zoom with the local media, and there were 2 today that went back to back. The first one was cornerback Steven Nelson, and the second one was defensive coach, secondary coach. I'm going to mess up his exact title. Terrell Austin. So you had a cornerback and the secondaries coach, one of the secondaries coach, and then at 4:30 this afternoon, with Steelers Nation Unite, there was a fan forum call with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So you had that as well. So it's just like, man, the Steelers are just pushing this secondary on us right now. So, hey, let's steer into the curve.
They're up in press coverage.
Yeah, press coverage. Oh my goodness. If this is what we have to deal with on this show, you guys are in trouble. So press coverage.
Just think if they had heard things that went on in our house growing up.
Oh, that's true too. Okay.
They never let us do a show.
Man, you just got me sidetracked with that one. But yeah, let's talk some secondary, because do you want to know what? How many years did we have to talk secondary, with the secondary being this?
Where we talked secondary, where it was like, okay, what's the weakness of this team? The secondary. Let's talk about the issues in the secondary.
Yeah.
And I mean, we even had years where we had Troy back there at safety when the secondary still had just Troy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, but that's when you were really in with the Blitzburg defense and things like that, and what really won the Steelers some championships was strong defense, good running game. That's was the Steelers calling card in 2005. Then you had 2008 where man oh man, Ben Roethlisberger emerges and drives the team. I'm sorry, that was a fantastic catch by Santonio Holmes, but Ben Roethlisberger Ben was the MVP of that game. Correct. So sorry about that, but
we know it. Ben knows it. Santonio Holmes knows it. That Ben Roethlisberger was the MVP.
Nothing against Santonio. He had a fantastic game. But I mean, if that's one of those times they should have done co-MVPs like they have done in the past. So, but you know what? The secondary, just that super long stretch where we had names to talk about, like Antoine Blake, like Ross Cockrell. I mean, Ross Cockrell, it's not that he was a terrible cornerback, but when he's the number one guy you're putting out there, it was painful.
To quote one Mr. Myron Cope, oi and yoy and double yoy.
Double yoy.
Double yoy.
Yeah, that was a double yoy, triple yoy, quadruple yoy, whatever you have to say about that. But I mean, my goodness. I mean, then 2017 rolls around and the Steelers make a right before the season free agent acquisition signing that I just shockingly was not what I expected the Steelers to do, because
I wanted it to happen, and I thought there would be
those kind of signings never happened. I thought there was no
chance. When they cut Joe Hayden, I thought, wow, it'd be cool if he'd be a Steeler. And next thing you know, he was a Steeler. Like, I was flabbergasted. I was just like, holy cow, how did this happen?
And people were like, oh, I'm like, no, not the Steelers. Not going to happen. I thought he was going to go west. Now you're probably thinking that I meant that he was going to travel in the western direction, when really I'm pulling a Brian Anthony Davis, and I am referring to the 80s/90s band by the name of Go West. And that one of their most popular songs that goes, I'll get over you. I know I will. I'll pretend the ship's not sinking. And I'll tell myself I'm over you because
just stop.
I am the king of wishful thinking. I mean, it was wishful thinking.
I hope that is not
Dad better be listening to this. He better be.
God, that's awful.
I know. Awful. Hey, I didn't sing it. I didn't sing it for you. But that's
the funny part
when Joe Hayden was available, I'm like, the Steelers can't sign Joe Hayden. They're not going to get Joe Hayden. And my goodness, they got Joe Hayden. And that is what basically started the turnaround. Okay. Yeah. Because in 2017, you got Joe Hayden playing. He did have some injury problems, but he played over 60% of the snaps on defense for the Steelers that year. But he did not play the most snaps because that was by his corner, the corner that was opposite of him, Artie Burns. But we were talking about Joe Hayden, Artie Burns, Sean Davis, Mike Mitchell. That was the secondary we were talking about in 2017 when Joe Hayden came in.
Like the sad part is, the sad part is it was an improved secondary.
Yes, it was so much better than the year before, wasn't it? Because the previous season, let me pull this up just to make sure we got this right. This was what we were dealing with the Steelers in 2016. You had leading the team in defensive snaps, cornerback Ross Cockrell. Then you had free safety Mike Mitchell. Of course, you had linebacker Lawrence Tillms. You had William Gay and Artie Burns and Sean Davis. But William Gay, that's when he was playing more of he was playing the slot corner there more than anything. And I mean, you look at that and you're like, he was at the end of his career, and he might have been the best guy in the secondary. I mean, and that was 2016. So the thing is, the Steelers now have turned it around. And what's crazy is, out of their starters, and you could even include the nickel corner in this, at least the nickel corner right now, who's the starter. How many of the secondary did they draft? One. Terrell Edmunds was the only player that they drafted that's now. Now we're going to talk about Cam Sutton here in a little bit, because he's going to be our transition piece here tonight. But we're going to start off talking about the cornerback position, because you get Joe Hayden and you get him in there in 2017, and things start to turn around. And it's like, as when Hayden comes in, that's kind of when Artie Burns starts to go downhill. We're just, that experiment. I mean, how often do you see someone that actually gets worse from year to year on their rookie contract? It's just, that was really tough to see.
Very often. And that's the funny thing with Artie Burns, is like his play deteriorated so quickly.
Yeah. So I got to bring this up. I stopped for Jeffrey, because he said, don't look at 2015, please. The trauma. Well,
we'll
stop
means
at 2016.
Now, what that means. Pull it up.
Pull it up. Yeah, it was not good. It was not good. So sorry, what you were saying, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know. I forgot already.
I don't know either. I'm sorry, but I was giving Jeffrey that chance, because because that was the whole.
I was talking about Artie Burns, and Artie Burns, like, here's what I think potentially could have happened there. All right. Did they try to keep things simple for him in his rookie season? Mm-hmm. And they kept throwing more and more at him as we've gone along, and he couldn't handle it?
I don't know. I don't know if he if it was the pressure. Know. Maybe he really needed a season to learn what he needed to do. That's one thing that I still say is great with 2019 third-round draft pick Justin Lane, who did rejoin the team today. That was a piece of news that we didn't discuss, because he was activated from the COVID-19, the reserve / COVID-19 list, and they released Breon Borders for that. He was someone who spent some time in Jacksonville and Washington in years past. So very interesting when it comes to the Steelers cornerbacks. I mean, I'll bring it up since you said bring it up. The Steelers from 2015, William Gay, Antoine Blake, and Ross Cockrell were the ones that led the team in snaps, with Mike Mitchell and Will Allen as the safeties. So just you think about how things have turned. We were talking about really brutal. That was when I was thinking, man, we were just absolutely brutal in the secondary. Yeah. Yeah, so Donald just asked there about Samuels. Yes, the Steelers still have one player on the COVID list. That is Jalen Samuels, and we'll see what happens with him. Probably, remember, regular practices start Monday, so technically if these guys are going to be in the list, now's not a bad time to be there. You never want to see anyone there. But some interesting numbers with that as well. But now we've got the Steelers going from, do they have the worst cornerbacks in the league just several years ago, to they are in the discussion for having the best cornerback duo in the league. They're right up there. You've got
again, still don't know how we pull off and got Joe Hayden. First of all, couldn't believe Cleveland let him go. Yeah. Talk about an organization that is known for crashing and burning. They crashed and burned yet again.
Well, I'm sorry, but when your mascot's the Browns, sometimes it's just going to be flushable, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So
then to turn around and be able to grab up what I felt was a very underrated Steven Nelson.
Yeah, that's
the one that's really a coup right there. That was a coup.
Well, because here's the thing with Steven Nelson, and this is what Nelson said. I wrote the article today about one of the things that he said, and I want to pull up the exact quote just because I don't want to misquote him. But he said he definitely feels he's underrated. He thinks a lot of people feel that he's underrated. And one of his goals this year is to be recognized as one of the better corners in the league. because basically, with the exception of interceptions, he was one of the better corners in the league last year. And the only reason he didn't have the interceptions was because of they weren't throwing at him as much. But Steven Nelson had some pretty good numbers in 2018 with the Chiefs. Now, the one number that stands out is he did give up, now this is according to Pro Football Reference, is that he did give up 5 touchdowns. But that was 5 touchdowns on 115 targets. Okay, 115 targets. And he gave up 5 touchdowns, where last year it was only 74 targets.
And the other reason then he kind of flew under the radar was not only, you can throw that number out there, but the other reason I think he flew under the radar is because Kansas City's defense just gave up yards and points like crazy, even though they were winning a lot of games. They were in a shootout every week.
Yeah.
And what defensive coaches are out there saying, "Oh, let's go look and pluck somebody really good off this team that gives up all these yards and all these points."
Yeah.
It's easy for a guy on a team like that to then kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah. And he did a fantastic job. I mean, he really did. Early on in the season, he was playing well, with Minkah playing well. We'll talk about Minkah a little bit later. And it seems like Joe Hayden was actually being targeted more early. Yeah. But yes. It all kind of evened out because, it
did even out because they started going less at Hayden when he started getting some picks, and he got more picks as he got more comfortable with Minkah behind him.
Yep.
So you're right. I think it all evened out, but it evened out in terms of I'll take the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, because Joe Hayden, he had, like I said, this is from Pro Football Reference, 82 targets with 44 completions, with just over 50% of yards given up. Where Steven Nelson, he was 37 of 74, exactly 50%, no touchdowns. That's key. No touchdowns. Now Hayden, gave up 5 touchdowns supposedly. But I mean, I still think that Steven Nelson should have been in the discussion for the Pro Bowl. And if it wasn't for the interceptions, I would have said him even over top of Joe Hayden. But you need name and you need flashy numbers for the Pro Bowl. And he just didn't have that. But I'm hoping that this is the year that Steven Nelson's name gets out there more, and for the right reasons, because it's kind of sometimes like, unless you're getting interceptions as a cornerback, you don't want to hear your name mentioned, kind of like an offensive lineman, because about the only time they ever get their name mentioned is when they either jump off sides or they hold. So what do you think about this duo going forward?
How do I say this? And I like them as a duo, but your cornerback duos can only be as good as the guys playing behind them. And with the guys playing behind them, you can only be so good as the guys playing out there in front of you, right? Think through Steeler history right now and think about some of our really good corners and who was playing behind them at safety.
Yeah. Yeah. Mel Blount.
Can you think of any?
Mel Blount.
Had who?
Donnie Shell.
Donnie Shell back there behind him. Okay.
Yeah, well, Donnie Shell was also the strong safety, and it was
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but that was just the whole secondary was great. Rod Woodson.
That's right. Had my favorite Carnell Lake back there.
Your go-to. Yeah, Carnell Lake. So you know what? Jeffrey brings up a really good point. He's like, they both have weaknesses that the team covers. They're really good in their strengths. And that's what the team's all about. Let you put players in a position to play to their strengths, which kind of also goes into the rest of the Steelers cornerbacks when you throw Mike Hilton into the mix. Okay, Correct. Mike Hilton does certain things really, really, really well. And Jeffrey's outlined this before. He plays the run really well. He blitzes off the corner really well. He's really good at taking away the shorter routes and the inside routes and things like that. But if he can do the things that he does well, so well, when he has the help over the top, which sometimes might make somebody else not look like they're doing so great. A lot of times he said it was Terrell Edmunds that was there covering with stuff with Mike Hilton. So you got to look at it as a whole unit. But then at the same time, you've got other guys. We don't know what the Steelers have in Justin Lane because he got 0 snaps last year, which was a great thing that he didn't get thrown to the wolves so early. Then the Steelers, and we're still not going to know much because of no preseason games for us to watch. So that'll be interesting. But of course, we also have to talk about a player that was specifically mentioned today by Coach Austin, and that was Cameron Sutton, where Coach Austin said that he will have an expanded role this year. He's got a lot of versatility, and he's very smart and great in pass defense. So what do you think he means by that? Because last year, Sutton, it was either Sutton or Hilton when they were in nickel, depending on the formation sometimes. And a lot of times it was both of them when it was in dime, where they were both on the field. So what do you think Coach Austin might have had in mind with what he said there, Rich? Any idea?
I think that was code for you're going to see him get some more snaps this year.
Yeah. So, and I also think that if there ends up being a problem at safety, I think he's another option there.
Yeah.
Because, that's what I think about when they talk about the versatility. So you're talking about he can come up and he can play nickel. He can play the outside. We saw that he had to step up and do that against the Chargers. And then he's a guy, because of what he plays in dime, that's basically like another safety, that it seems like he's got the versatility to do it all, which allows the Steelers to do other things. And personally, that's a guy I really hope that the Steelers can keep after this year. So,
sure, you want to see him be able to keep a guy like that, because again, what kind of guy is? Think about some really good players that can do that. Who was out there? Well, let's see. There's Hall of Famer Rod Woodson, who
he
could
have played both,
played corner and eventually played safety, no problem. Then there was the year we had issues and we moved my boy Carnell Lake from safety to corner.
Yeah,
and so you think about some of those guys that we've seen in the black and gold through the years. Could Sutton turn into one of those kind of guys that just is good enough and versatile enough that he could do whatever we need him to do?
Yeah, and these are the kind of guys that you need in order to do these different things you want to do. You bring him onto the field, and you don't know what they're doing. There's so much you can do. It's kind of like on offense, because I had a couple years where I was a defensive coordinator. I was also more of an offensive coordinator when it came with stuff with the offensive line, and loved doing blocking schemes, everything. But when you can bring someone on the field that you don't know what you're going to be doing with them, for example, like an Eric Ebron, are you going to line it in tight as a tight end and do a run and play? You're going to split them out wide. You're going to do Chase Claypool can bring you the same kind of thing. Maybe even Derek Watt can do some of the same kind of stuff. That was what the Steelers had in Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed, is that you don't know where you're going to line up and run it, or you're going to have him out wide as a threat at wide receiver. When you have guys that can do multiple things,
where our personnel packages don't give away what we're going to do. That's really what it comes down to. When you have guys that go out there so that your personnel package doesn't give any clues to the offense or to the other side or the defense. When you run those personnel packages out there and they're like, okay, well, we think this, and then when we line up and it's not that, then we've got them.
Yeah. And here, I'm going to bring this up from Donald. He says they will have more packages with 6 DBs out there. It'll be Hayden, Nelson, Fitzpatrick, Edmunds, Hilton, and Sutton out there all at once. Absolutely. If I'd had a little bit more time, I would have tried to bring up how many times those 6 players were on the field together last year, because I do believe that is something that they will be doing. But what we're going to do now is we're going to transition into talking about safety. But in order to do that, we're going to take our short little break. here. And for those of you on YouTube, we'll be back in a few seconds. And for those of you listening on audio, we'll be back with part 2 here in just one moment. And we are back with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. And it's funny because I know I don't want to have to explain this every time. I don't want to explain it every show. But then Michael didn't explain it and someone gave him a hard time. Why are you guys splitting it? Yes, I understand some people, when it comes to podcasts, have no problem sitting down and listening to a 60-minute podcast. But what we got as an overall feedback was that people like to have, about half that time, so that they would rather have 2 podcasts that are 30 minutes rather than one that's 60. We know the YouTube, we're not going to cut you guys short. We're going to keep rolling. So like Jeffrey says, great intermission. That was awesome. Should have taken a drink in there if I needed to.
Oh yeah, I should have.
You should have made the bugs be quieter in the background.
We didn't even give the audience enough time to get up and go get a drink out of the fridge.
Yeah, I know. That's what we should have done. Okay. Dallas is saying needed that popcorn for intermission. Get your popcorn ready. But we're talking secondary tonight because it was the big day of secondary players today, with hearing from Steven Nelson and from Coach Austin and from Minkah Fitzpatrick. So we talked corners, and you got to love it. And the Steelers came in and they had those strong corners. You were there in week 2 when the 2 corners were on the field, but there still seemed to be something missing. The Steelers are like, you know what? Well, you kind of knew after week 1 with Cameron Kelly coming in from the AAF that it was, coming in his very first game with the NFL, having to start against Tom Brady. That was someone that was in over their head. And so then Sean Davis returned. And I'm wondering, even if Sean Davis wouldn't have got hurt, you pull that trigger if you're the Steelers?
I do.
Oh, absolutely. That you bring in the now all-pro safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Rich, what did that mean to this defense?
All right. It meant the world to this defense. But what was funny was the number of people at the time that threw a fit at that trade because we gave up a number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. We gave up a first-round pick to get him. Now stop and think a minute about what kind of deals have been going on in the NFL here of late.
Yeah, look at the Jamal Adams deal. That was 2 first-round picks.
Right. Suddenly we've gotten some deals where we're giving up 2 first-round picks for a guy.
For a player that only had 2 years left, one of which was the 5th-year option. I mean, they got Minkah for another year with that.
I know.
Yeah. And
so to me, some people were upset at the time. I knew Minkah Fitzpatrick. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't follow a lot of college football. I don't pick up guys until the combine typically is where I start really to look into a lot of college players.
Yep.
And Minkah was a name that was on my radar back then. So I was like, this guy is for real. This guy can play. And you watch a little tape and you're just like, oh yeah, his skills translate to the next level easy, right?
Yeah.
So when there was the chance, there was talk, oh, he's not happy, he wants out, this and that. Another one of those where it's like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool to see the Steelers get a guy like that? And the next thing you know, whoa, we're not going west again. We're not going west again, right?
We weren't wishful thinking since I had my bad joke, I guess I should say.
We were willing and gave up a first-round draft pick for him.
Yeah.
And again, at the top, look, I know what people were thinking because we did it right after Ben went down. Everything was going.
Oh, we're going to need that for a quarterback next year.
We're going to need that for a quarterback. It's going to be a top 5 pick. It's going to,
Nope.
Funny that didn't turn out. So as that pick dropped down further and further and further. Yeah, and
don't let me distract you by bringing that up on screen. I'm just bringing it up before I leave.
Totally distracted because Jeffrey's got it totally right.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Because he said Jamal Adams is worth it. If we knew what Minkah would be, he'd have been worth 2 first-round picks as well. And honestly, Minkah did not look good in week 2 when the Steelers traded for him. He didn't. But I don't blame that all on him. I really don't.
I didn't look at honestly when we made that for him. I didn't look at either game he had played. Yeah, I didn't look at anything from last year, either game before he played. I just knew he was a guy that I thought could play.
Yeah, and I mean, if Minkah comes in and let's say he struggles more than he did in Miami, then we're like, oh, that was such a bad trade. It's terrible. He comes in and he's all pro. And I did an article on that one today because from hearing the stuff from Minkah Fitzpatrick, listening to the call, because he talked about the question was, what made it so easy for you to come in? And he's like, they just told me to do what I do. They didn't try to overcomplicate things for me right away. They knew I was going to make mistakes. They knew I was going to miss, because he came in with just a handful of practices and he's out there for every snap of the very first week. And they're like, just go play football. Hey, go out there, show us what you can do. We'll work on improving stuff as we move along. And him just being a natural football player was so good. I don't know that they wanted to change that very much throughout the season. Just kind of say, just do you. So now they can scheme some other things to do whatever he's ready to do. Minkah Fitzpatrick he's going to be
they're going to get him to their scheme, but I think they also, because of how that worked with him last year, they learned so much about him. They're going to be able to work their scheme to what they were seeing as his strengths.
Yeah, and he knows so much what he's doing. He studies so much film, and he puts in the time, and he's real back there. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's such a great communicator back there." He gives credit to that to Terrell Edmunds. The Terrell Edmunds is often back there being the communicator. And I know there's a lot of people, and I saw Wes is in here now because he likes to just hate on Terrell Edmunds. Everyone's like, we need to cut Edmunds. I'm like, why would you cut Edmunds? Edmunds is not a bad safety. He's not. He's just not living up to where he was drafted. He's not living up to that pedigree.
Which everybody, when we drafted him, said we drafted him too early. Said he was a different round pick. Okay. Yeah. If you thought he was a late second round pick instead of a first round pick, okay, then let's think about how well he plays as there. His play is probably closer to where most people think he should have been drafted versus where we drafted him.
Yeah, where he actually was.
Did we draft him correctly? Probably not. But he's what we got.
I did an article that was over a year ago where it was, if guys went different places in the draft, how would we view them? I flat up switched Mason Rudolph and Terrell Edmunds. Because I'll be honest with you, I wanted Mason Rudolph in the first round. I'm glad they got him in the beginning of the third, just because I thought, hey, that was still when Ben was wishy-washy at times and thought it'd be because he was a guy that definitely needed a year for sure. So this was, before Mason Rudolph took the field last year. My whole notion was so many people are like, Rudolph can't be the answer. He's a third round pick. He can't be the answer. He's a third round pick. I'm like, why don't you actually let him play first before you decide if he could be the guy after Ben? Now we saw him play, and now we have a better way to say that. But to say that simply based on where he was drafted, the Steelers could have, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that the Steelers could have taken Mason Rudolph in the first round and Terrell Edmunds in the third. They would have felt a lot different about both players. People would want to be giving Rudolph more of a chance to show what he is because he was a first round pick. And people would have think that Terrell Edmunds, especially as a rookie and beyond, was just, wow, what a steal that we're getting this many snaps out of a guy from the third round already. So, and that's just what it was. So that's the biggest thing about Terrell Edmunds. And I'm not going to knock on Terrell Edmunds. I want to see him come out there and make plays. No, he does not play the ball well in the air. Jeffrey's broken this down for us a bunch of times. He does not play the ball well while it's in the air, but he does a lot of other things well. And the Steelers, it's kind of funny because the way I look at it is the Steelers are trying to play to their best players' best strengths. And it seems like somebody is going to have to kind of take one for the team and not always get to play for their strengths because they're covering other people's weaknesses. And a lot of times that ends up being Terrell Edmunds. Go ahead and read that one, Rich.
Okay, so Doc Holliday says he's more of a box safety they thought could develop some coverage skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's still evident in his game. As you said, he does not always play the ball well in the air. That's part of the reason he's more safety and was never a corner.
Yeah.
We talked about, different, hey, the 1 year we had to move Cardinal Lake down and play corner for half the year. And he did that. Would you ever even think you could begin to do that with somebody like Terrell Edmunds? No,
because that's not the type of player he is.
That's right.
So it seems like he does have strengths, but because of a lot of times with his athleticism, that he's not always playing to his strengths. He's playing in order to bring, other people's strengths. I think just seeing him and Minkah work together this year, this is going to be the key to be like, Edmunds, what's going on? Is this a guy that is worth keeping around long term or not? This year, I think is going to be a really big year for him. Now, we already mentioned. Go ahead.
But I was agreeing with what you were saying.
You agree with what I was saying.
This is where Edmunds is going. Mm-hmm. He's really into that make or break. Are we going to keep him around, or do we think we could easily replace him?
Yeah,
and it may be that if we think we can easily replace him, he plays out his rookie deal and he's done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. I got to do the first part of this, and it just skipped ahead on me. Jeffrey said this: Edmunds was drafted to play with Sean Davis, who was a true cover one deep zone safety. Then he said he is a strong safety. Minkah isn't that cover one guy, so Edmunds has to learn to be deep more. So in other words, what Edmunds was brought in to do, he now is doing something different. So very interesting. I mean,
I know, but I still think his play got so much better last year once we had Minkah.
Of course. Well, just think about that. If Terrell Edmunds, I mean, you would have to say he's the weakest link in the secondary. Oh, I know. And I don't know that that's necessarily a terrible thing. So he's going to have to make plays because teams are going to go after him, because who else you want to go after instead? So very interesting. And then you throw Cam Sutton in there into the whole safety discussion with the way Coach Austin was saying about how versatile he is. They're going to be using some very different coverages. And I know, so I still feel that Edmunds is going to be more of what you call your dime backer, he's kind of playing that extra linebacker role that's also doing coverage.
Linebacker role, covering tight ends coming across the middle, and that kind of stuff. I very much could see.
Yeah, it's just that right now it just seems that the Steelers has this secondary that works. The biggest fear is what happens if you have either the COVID or the injury bug rears its ugly head. What are you going to do?
You be quiet.
No, I'm still saying Cam Sutton helps to answer a lot of those question marks.
It helps to have a really versatile guy back there. So yes, if something happens, you got a guy that could play corner, could play safety, Yeah.
So I think the Steelers have options, and then they still have young guys like Justin Lane. Who knows who's going to be filling out the rest of the safety room? Because once again, you've got another guy that the question. It's funny because as soon as the Steelers signed him, everyone wanted to know if he's going to be the starter over Edmunds. My question isn't, is he going to be the starter over Edmunds? I even had people emailing me out. I'm like, is he going to make the team? And that's Curtis Riley, who played safety and corner. So he's another one of those guys. Which room is he really going to be in for the Steelers? Or is he going to be like a Sutton, that he's just kind of like a guy that's out there, more of a special teams guy? But if you have guys that add to your depth by being able to play corner and safety, that's just a bonus, because the Steelers generally keep 10 defensive backs on the squad.
Right.
So then if you're talking about one or two or three guys that can play both, you're talking about maybe that's a position where that's where they could squeeze out keeping another running back, maybe from the secondary. I don't know. Right. I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying the more versatile your guys are, the better off you could be.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
if you got a guy or two that can play both positions, that just opens up that maybe instead of 10, you can keep 9.
yeah, but I'm fine if they keep 10. I don't know if you need to keep 11
too.
but because the other thing
I
is,
trust them to do what they, I trust the coaching staff to do what they feel is best with the team when it comes down to do we keep who they go. You gotta trust them. Yes, I know that we're there are a lot of people out there worried that we're talking defense tonight, but I'll bring it up anyway. That we're going to keep Ryan Switzer around when they think we should get rid of him. But again, I want to trust the coaching staff to make the decisions there that they feel does the best for the team.
Yeah,
so if they think we need 10 defensive backs, not questioning it.
Yeah. So so it's going to be one of those things of what do you bring to the table? You bring up the Ryan Switzer thing as a parallel. What does he bring to the table that the Steelers don't already have? I've always said he catches the ball really well. He doesn't drop the ball. So that's something and that's why he's got such a rapport with Ben Roethlisberger's, because when Ben throws him the ball, he doesn't drop it. So you got to ask these secondary guys, what do they bring to the table? If you're bringing to the table somebody that could fill in so many different positions in the defense, that's something great to bring to the table. Whenever Justin Lane came back and they cut Breon Borders, I got a text from behind the steel curtain deputy editor Michael Beck saying, does this mean that Trajan Bandy is going to be a lock for the roster? I said, no, because I'm not convinced they're keeping 6 corners and 4 safeties like they have at times. They might be keeping 5 corners and 5 safeties. They might be keeping some younger guys around on the practice squad, which is now expanded and everything else. And they don't have to all be younger guys. They don't have to. I have more info on that coming on Thursday morning's audio show of Steelers Stat Geek about some various things with the roster. Some of the numbers we're going to talk about there. But you're going to want to have some of these extra guys there, and maybe that's where they really keep the young guys. I don't know. Is Marcus Allen going to make this team after all but 1 week on the practice squad last year, 1 week on the roster? Is he going to be another practice squad guy? You just don't know what they're seeing. We're not going to get to see it, and that's it. So anything else you want to say here, Rich, before we turn it over to some questions here for the last 10 minutes or so?
No, I don't know. Just after a little stretch there, it's so nice to talk about, our secondary and where we're looking at our weaknesses in the secondary, thinking, wow, there would be a lot of teams that would love to be saying this is their weakness.
Oh, I know. And it just it's funny because the secondary benefits from the quick pressure that the Steelers get up front. And the Steelers' quick pressure up front benefits from a good secondary that might have to make the quarterback hold the ball for another half a second. I mean, They play right off of each other. And it used to be so many times, the Steelers are getting sacks, but sometimes it seemed like all the quarterback had to do was just chuck the ball out there, and they're probably not going to get intercepted. They're probably going to complete it, or if not, there's going to be a pass interference penalty. So that's what they were doing sometimes to keep from getting sacked. Now, can't do that. You got guys like Joe Hayden, guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, each with 5 interceptions each. Oh, and Minkah projected that he would have 6 or 7 interceptions this year in the call when they asked him. He's like, I want to take a step up. So we'll go 6, maybe 7. That's what he wants to see this year. So when you guys got guys back there, you can't just say, oh, I better make this throw quick before I get hit, or else that secondary is going to make you pay too. So super exciting to have this defense, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So
it is.
We're going to open it up now, if it comes up there, to see if we have any questions rolling in here, things we want to talk about. It could be about the secondary or –
sorry, I was putting that one up there.
I might skip on questions going. Okay, but that is true, Ryan. Love it from Minkah. Love the confidence. Love what he's going with. Okay, this is a good question from.
Sorry, I was trying to take that one off as you're bringing the other one on.
Yep,
I'm sorry, you were talking, so I was looking at the screen.
Dallas says, "What do you think the loss of the 12th man will have this year on the home games? Not just the home games, Dallas." Not just the home games. You don't mean to tell me that the Steelers were probably going to outnumber some of the fans in some of the other stadiums they traveled to this year? Like
we always do.
New York, I think they would have done all right there. Jacksonville, oh my goodness, that's always almost like Heinz Field South, and a couple of those games. I mean, it's tough to do it in division just because of what it is, but it's funny because it's nice to have that there to get the defense fired up. It's hard to say if there's still going to be some fans in the stands. It's still a possibility, but I'm not banking on it. But bottom line is these guys are professionals. If they can't get fired up, guess what? Neither is the other team. I mean, both teams are going to have to play it. You might lose some of your advantage at home, but that means you might be having more of an advantage on the road. So these guys just as you get someone roaring down the road there, bro, these guys gotta hype up each other. And I think they can do it with the energy that this defense has. What do you think, Rich?
Totally agree with your take there. There will be a few points in games where the crowd makes an impact. Okay, that's gone. But if it's gone, it's going to be gone in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I'm not. The biggest thing to me is this just going to be weird.
Yeah. But you know what would be even more weird? Sundays in the fall where you're not watching football. That would be more weird. So I'm not going to complain about no fans.
But
fans.
I mean, have you watched some baseball?
No.
I've watched some
baseball.
Oh,
I watched 4 hockey games that I wish I could forget.
I haven't watched any hockey. I've watched baseball.
Oh,
okay, just a few. Look, you know me. I was a baseball guy. I love playing, love coaching. Kyle plays, and I've coached him, and so I've watched some baseball. It is weird listening to that pumped-in crowd noise on the TV when you look out there and see empty stands.
Yeah.
Did you see the funny one that came up?
I saw Bernie. Bernie was in the stands. I love that one. So, all right, let's roll through some of these quick here. We got Mule saying wants to see Bugs get a few snaps in game one, maybe 5 to 10 plays. That would be great. We'll see how that all plays out. Mark wants to know, should Banner and Chooks rotate at right tackle if neither guy can outperform the other? I'm going to say no. It would be really nice to say, hey, we'll have one in for pass protection, one in for run protection, but then you're saying what you're doing. You're just going to have to pick a guy and go with it. You really are.
But here's what wouldn't surprise me here, okay? Let's say
they could change it game to game.
Correct. They could change game to game depending on what they're wanting to scheme or matchups. Mm-hmm. Or let's say this, okay? Let's say we got something let's say Chooks wins the starting job. Mm-hmm. And we getting ready to go into a game where it might benefit Banner a little more.
Where they don't have that big pass rushing threat there. But
let's say that in the meantime, Chooks is a little dinged and could use a breather for a week. To he tweaked the knee or something like that. Then of course you're going to go with Banner in there. If the matchup's favorable and Chooks would need. Then you do it.
Be a situation if one of those guys, if whoever wins that job has anything on the injured report, misses any kind of limited in practice, you could very well see the other one in there, which is a good point. I really want this question from Ezra. Who are you most excited to win a ring? Pouncey, Hayden, Ben's third, or Tomlin second? He says he's pulling for Pouncey. How about you?
Actually, no. I know it's correct. Okay, I can have reasons for picking any of them.
Yes.
Okay. Of course, you know why you can pick Pouncey.
Yeah.
Hayden, you'd love to see a guy get one for us after having to suffer through the Browns for the first part of his career. I actually would like, but if you maybe pick one overall, it's Ben, and it's Ben's third. Okay, because I am so sick and tired of hearing people talk about Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, that's just going to set them apart.
I am so sick and tired of hearing all the talk of them And Ben's an afterthought.
I could totally see that.
I want Ben to walk away with more Super Bowls than Eli, and keep Philip Rivers on 0.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. I can go with that one. I think it would be good. I think when it comes to players like Pouncey, DeCastro, Hayden, it's going to help build a resume for when you're talking Canton in several years after they're done playing. So all those, I'm really bummed that Ramon Foster never got a ring.
Yeah.
That's one I really wish could get one, but that's why it's important to do it now, because these guys are running out of chances. Brad wanted to jump on with Dallas's question and say that Wes mentioned something last night about there's going to have to be a complete change every week in audible verbiage, probably because you're going to get so much audio on tape.
Yep.
So I think they did that a lot anyway, because
a lot of
possibility of the tape or you got to change stuff up, or you change up just enough that you make sense. Oh, is this what that means? Or is it the opposite? You can never really know. So
you have to change it up from week to week. Dilly.
Yeah. So, as you go to Omaha, man, there's a lot of questions. We're not going to get to them. Okay.
No, they are flying tonight. I've seen a few.
Let's do some quick. Donald wants to know about, assuming Gilbert is playing on the roster, does Leo Lewis get on the practice squad? I'm going to say probably, unless they find somebody else. But I'd say, think about it. There's not going to be many guys that, if the Steelers fill their practice squad completely with guys that are on the roster now, you're talking about going from 8. You're only cutting 11 guys. Cutting 11 guys. So the guys that don't make the 53 have greater than a 50% chance of being on that practice squad.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. I got a quick double I got to do here. Okay.
Go.
Real quick. Okay. Wes says, how many points do you think we will win the Super Bowl by? Okay. And then, hold on, I'm going to find one. And Ezra followed that up. Wes, we'll score at least 30.
At least, so. Which they didn't do last year.
Yep.
So,
got that.
Some good stuff. Okay. Dallas wanted to know then, do we draft DeCastro's replacement soon? Did we already in Dotson?
We might have.
You don't, but you got to have 2 guards. So the question is, who plays right guard after DeCastro? DeCastro was saying, hey, this could be Al's last year. He's on the last year of his contract and he's getting up there. Pouncey and I, we're old too. You've got to enjoy this ride while you've got it. So get a win for those guys. I'd really like to see that. Okay. Lots of people chiming in on their Super Bowl. So anything else you see there? Okay.
Guys, more snaps at linebacker, UG3 or Edmunds? Well,
the thing is, when you're in dime package, can you really call Edmunds a linebacker?
I know.
So I don't know about that. So I'm going to say at linebacker, I'm going to say UG3, because anytime Edmunds is on the field, I'm not going to call him a linebacker. Unless there's, unless it's really, really obvious. So that's really tough to say where they're really playing. I understand. Great question, Ryan. I understand your point, but it's going to be tomato, and what people call it.
Yep.
So it all depends on who's classifying, if it's a snap at safety or linebacker, whose database you're looking at is what's going to depend on more. So, but I think UG3, I'd like to see him get a good bit of snaps at linebacker this year too. So
yeah, I would as well. And he's going to get some. He's a guy I'm going to expect to see get some snaps this year.
I'm going to bring up one last question before we get out of here from Tyler. And that is, because it comes back to our topic, should we expect any regression from Hayden this year? Or do you think he will be as good or better than last year? When you get to be someone that age, that's really tough to think that they're going to continue to improve. I don't think Joe Hayden, his trajectory is upward still because of the time he is in his year. It's how many quality years can you still get with him with the age that he's at?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking they got another quality year from him.
Oh, yeah. I think Hayden's got a 2 to 3 more total.
Yeah.
Where he could still be a starting level caliber cornerback.
Yeah, I agree. So with that, let me do the quick rundown. Make sure you're checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Lots of stuff coming out there. I mean, my goodness, I'm trying to think. We had at least a dozen articles today. We lots of stuff out there for you. With one Jefferson Hartman being back, you're getting stuff from him and from me. And there's just there's something for everybody. Whenever you're out there, another great article from Kevin Smith today. Then you also have our podcast coming up. You have Beck and Black coming with their second show tomorrow night. If Michael doesn't mess up the name again, when he said Beck is Black.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. He's like, your first show, we'll get it with him and Jeffrey. They
were great last week. They really were.
And then we got the preview. Jeff is out this week. He's away on vacation. He's still doing his audio shows, but he's not going to be live with us Thursday night. So I don't know what bad I have in store for that one. And then Michael's back with the live mic on Friday. Tony with his Saturday show. Bad with his Tales from 2 a.m. on Sunday. And then you're back with the Steelers Q&A with Brian and Tony on Monday. And you and I coming in on Tuesdays. Anything else you want to say here, Rich, for the good of the order?
Oh, no, just thank you again, folks, in the live chat. Man, they keep me busy trying to keep an eye on what's going on out there.
I know. Great stuff. Great stuff. We really enjoy this time with you all. So thank you very much. Hey, if you haven't already, hit that like button on YouTube. If you're listening to this in audio form, make sure you give that great rating and just continue to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you all next time.